General Hospital shocker. Vaughn kills his father. Jason faces justice for his past. Vaughn Ashford had always felt like he didn't belong. Raised in foster care, adopted twice, abandoned once, he had spent most of his life looking for answers in the shadows. But nothing prepared him for the truth that came crashing into his world like a tidal wave. His biological father was none other than Jason Morgan. It started with a DNA test. It was supposed to be routine, part of his quest to understand a rare genetic disorder threatening his health. The results were a cosmic joke. Not only did it point to Jason Morgan, the reclusive mob enforcer returned from the dead, but it also revealed a more gut-wrenching truth. Vaughn's biological mother was Britt Westbourne. Vaughn's knuckles turned white as he gripped the results. The very man who had disappeared from his mother's life and left her alone with a pregnancy, only for her to die while he grew up feeling unwanted, was now walking freely in Port Charles. He decided he would confront Jason. But he didn't want a reunion. He wanted retribution. Jason Morgan had just begun rebuilding his life in Port Charles after returning from yet another brush with death. Reconnecting with Danny, trying to be a shadowy protector for Sam from afar, and avoiding Sonny's world of crime, that was his priority. But secrets never stayed buried in this town, and neither did old sins. Carly had warned him. "You left more broken people behind than you know, Jason," she'd said one night on the docks. Jason said nothing. Silence was his defense. But when he received an envelope containing the same DNA report Vaughn had read, his hands trembled for the first time in years. The boy he didn't even know existed was now a grown man, and he was in Port Charles. Jason remembered Britt. Their connection was brief, passionate, tragic. She never told him she was pregnant. He knew this couldn't be ignored. The meeting was set. Vaughn sent a single text from an unknown number. Pier 47. Midnight. No guards. Just you. Jason came, gun hidden in his waistband. Old habits die hard. Vaughn stood beneath the flickering light, dressed in black, his face half covered by a hood. "I know who you are," Vaughn said coldly. Jason stepped forward cautiously. "I think I know who you are." "You think?" Vaughn scoffed. "You abandoned my mother. Left her to die. Left me to rot." Jason tried to speak. "I didn't know." "Save it," Vaughn snapped. "You never looked back." "That's enough for me." Jason looked him in the eye. "If I had known. But you didn't. And now I want justice." Jason saw it too late, the glint of a knife as Vaughn lunged. The blade cut deep across Jason's ribs. Jason stumbled backward, bleeding, shocked not by the pain, but by the fury in Vaughn's eyes. "I'm not just your son," Vaughn growled. "I'm your consequence." News of the pier attack spread fast. Sam, Carly, even Sonny were alarmed. But Jason disappeared. No hospital admission. No police report. Because he didn't want to protect himself. He wanted to protect Vaughn. He remembered what it felt like to be a young man, angry, alone, hunted. Vaughn didn't need a father. He needed peace. But that wouldn't come easily. Meanwhile, Dante Falconeri was investigating a string of weapons thefts that pointed to a mysterious new player in Port Charles, someone with connections to Victor Cassidy's old syndicate. The name Vaughn Ashford showed up in surveillance footage. And then Jason's name showed up on a security cam bleeding and staggering away from Pier 47. Dante put two and two together. "Jason's protecting him," Dante told Sam. "Why?" Sam's voice broke. "Because he's Jason's son." Jason finally found Vaughn again, this time at the graveyard. Britt's grave. Vaughn was kneeling before it, his hand clenched over a flask, eyes red from anger or tears, maybe both. Jason didn't speak. He sat down beside him on the damp earth. Vaughn didn't look at him. "I'm not sorry for what I did." Jason shook his head. "I wouldn't expect you to be." Silence. "I loved your mother," Jason said quietly. "I didn't know about you. But I should have known." "That's on me." "You left her," Vaughn whispered. "Do you know what she went through?" "No," Jason admitted. "But I want to know now." "I owe her that. And I owe you that." Vaughn turned. His face was a mask of pain and fire. "You don't owe me anything, Jason. You owe me a life you can't give back." Jason nodded. "Then let me at least give you the truth." Vaughn returned to Britt's old penthouse. It was locked away, untouched for years, but Jason had the key. Inside, they found journals, photographs, letters Britt had written but never sent. One of them read, "I thought about telling Jason, but what's the point? He's always a ghost. Vaughn will be better without a ghost for a father." Vaughn's hands trembled as he read it. "She gave up on you before I was even born," he muttered. Jason's voice was barely audible. "She wanted to protect you. From me. She wasn't wrong." Vaughn couldn't breathe. The rage that had once fueled him was now suffocating him. But peace never lasts in Port Charles. Cyrus Renaud, newly returned and vowing vengeance, learned of Vaughn's existence and saw a golden opportunity. Kidnap the son of Jason Morgan, cripple him emotionally, and send a message. Only Cyrus miscalculated. Because Vaughn wasn't weak. He was a weapon forged in bitterness and loss. Cyrus's men took him from the hospital parking lot. By the time Jason and Sonny got the tip, it was almost too late. But Vaughn had already freed himself, leaving two of Cyrus's men unconscious in the alley. When Jason and Sonny arrived, Vaughn was standing over Cyrus with a gun. His hand didn't shake. Jason shouted, "Vaughn, don't." But Vaughn didn't flinch. "I'm tired of paying for your sins," Vaughn said, looking at Jason one last time. "Let me clean up your mess." He pulled the trigger. Cyrus Renaud was dead. And Vaughn Ashford was now a killer. Dante arrested him, reluctantly. The evidence was undeniable. Jason offered himself up in exchange. "Take me instead," Jason said. "He's just a kid." But Vaughn spoke first. "I'm not a kid anymore, Jason. I stopped being one the day my mom died alone." He turned to Dante. "Take me in." In the courtroom, the judge heard the whole story: Jason's past, Britt's journals, the kidnapping, Vaughn's self-defense. But Vaughn refused leniency. He wanted to pay. Just once, he wanted to control the narrative of his own life. The media frenzy didn't stop with Vaughn's arrest. Reporters unearthed Jason's old mob ties. The feds reopened cold cases. With renewed pressure and a new U.S. attorney wanting to make a name, Jason Morgan was indicted on several charges tied to organized crime, obstruction, and accessory to murder. Carly screamed at the TV. "This is insane. They're crucifying him for a life he walked away from." But Jason didn't fight it. He accepted it. Because every ghost he left behind had come back. And this time, he wasn't going to run. In a quiet courtroom, as Vaughn watched from a chained bench, Jason Morgan stood tall and finally pleaded guilty. Vaughn was sentenced to 5 years, eligible for parole in 18 months, given the extenuating circumstances. Jason received 10. Port Charles was shaken. But something shifted that day. Sonny visited Jason in prison. "You didn't have to fall on the sword." Jason looked through the glass. "I did. Sam brought Danny to visit. He wants to know his brother." Jason smiled faintly. One day, Vaughn, too, received a visitor, Monica Quartermain. She sat beside him in the visitation room and placed a hand over his. "You're part of this family now," she said gently. "Whether you like it or not." Vaughn stared at her. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. Jason sat on his prison cot, a scar fading over his rib. He opened a letter from Vaughn. Asterisk, "You were right. I am more than what I was made into. Maybe one day we can try again, not as father and son, but as two men trying to be better than the lives we inherited. Until then, I'll fight like hell. For me. And for her." Asterisk. Jason closed his eyes. Some sins never wash away. But maybe, just maybe, redemption could begin with the truth.